Raider Nation, what's going on? You're watching the Raiders Report, brought to you by BetDSI, and I'm your host, Mitchell Renz. Interact with me on Twitter and Instagram, at MitchellRenz365. I got a mailbag segment from Raider Nation, and if you guys want to get on the show, subscribe below to youtube.com/Raiders Report, and I go into our community tab, and I post, hey, do you guys have any questions that you want to ask me? And then I get them on here live. So, the first one I got coming up here on the board is from Albert. What's going on, my man? Do you think the Raiders should trade their lower first-round picks, so 27 and 24, and move up in the first round? I'm actually not too sold on this idea. If anything, I would actually take their fourth pick, and I would trade down. That's why I've been trying to get these Dwayne Haskins rumors going, so a team trades up for the Raiders at number 4, and then maybe they can get extra picks. Now, the only way that I say I don't want to get extra picks is if somehow Nick Bosa slides down to number 4. So, he asked it, so now I'm going to ask you. Should the Raiders trade up? I want you to type Y for yes or type N for no. Should the Raiders trade up from the 24th and the 27th pick in the 2019 NFL Draft? My next one in here is from John Hall. And John, much appreciated, my man. Much appreciated. He throws in the hashtag Raiders. Mitch, thanks for the best show on YouTube. Throwing up the U there. Thanks, my man. I really appreciate it. And anybody who else isn't subscribed already, subscribe below to youtube.com/Raiders Report, because as John said, it's the best show on YouTube for Raiders coverage. And why not interact with me on social media? I think I'm a halfway decent guy at MitchellRenz365. My next Raiders mailbag is from Astro the Fool Killer. Interesting. It looks like he's got a picture with, is that James Yoder? I'm not quite sure. Do you think we're going to use all of our draft picks for the new fresh players or trade for players who can make a difference right now? This question is a little bit confusing to me. Do you think we're going to use all of our draft picks for fresh new players? I don't know many old faces in the NFL draft. At least I could be wrong there, but I like what the what the Raiders could potentially do in the NFL draft there. I want them to get a lot of defensive players, but ultimately, yeah, we need a lot of new faces, and luckily we have a lot of draft picks to do it. Next one in here is from Eddie D, and this one's pretty funny to me because he also commented earlier like, hey, I got to update my picture. So, Eddie, make sure you update that picture. Go after 2 quality defensive ends in free agency, then try and draft Greedy Williams, ? Or trade out pick number 4 to acquire more draft capital. So this is kind of asking me, which one would I prefer? I understand the quality free agents, defensive ends. That's why I released my top 5 pass rushers that I think the Raiders should go after. I mean, let's be real. They have a serious need at getting after the quarterback. When you have only 13 sacks and you're ranked dead last in the NFL, it's a huge need. And then considering the team that was ranked 31st in sacks had 30, that's even scarier. But I think that getting the free agency defensive ends is intriguing because there's a lot of depth there. And I like Greedy Williams, but at the end of the day, taking Greedy Williams at 4, I don't know if I'm necessarily 100% sold on that. If you could ask me, I would like to get the extra draft capital because let's be real, the Raiders have serious holes just about everywhere in that defense, so the more players we get, the better we are. Well, hopefully. Mike Lee coming in here. What's up, my man? Represent the picture. I like it. Mike here. Mitch here. You're still the man, Mitch. Much appreciated. Is Gruden and Mayock a perfect combo? Well, personally, I don't really like combos. I think the pizza ones are kind of gross, and so are the cheddar. But when it comes to Gruden and Mayock being a perfect combo, they're okay to me, right? I mean, we haven't seen it yet, but I think it has a high ceiling to be something great. And I think when you look at people who have big, what's the word I'm looking for? Big egos, there you go. They need to sometimes maybe shift it aside a little bit, and let's be real. I run a Raiders show, my ego's big. I can't even imagine what John Gruden and Mike Mayock's egos are like. And the fact that Mayock already understands his role, and he's already come out and said that this year, John's got the final say. I think it shows a lot of what kind of man Mike Mayock is, and for him to swallow his pride a little bit and be like, I understand what my job is, but let's be real, John Gruden's making the calls here. And I think Mayock and Gruden are going to get along because, well, Mayock's the NFL draft guru, and John Gruden's the head coach, and if they can maybe just collaborate and think through things and not bat heads, I think it's going to work out. So I'm really hoping that it works, and I think it would be a perfect combo if they both can set their egos aside and actually concentrate on what needs to get done to win games. But I want to know from you, are Gruden and Mayock a perfect combo? You should type P for perfect combo or type B for bad combo. If you want to know what I think, hit me up on IG or Twitter at MitchellRenz365. I got a perfect combination for you. Free money and free NFL jerseys thanks to our sponsor, BetDSI. Go to chatsports.com/bet and use our promo code LIVE120 for 120% deposit bonus. When you sign up and deposit, use MasterCard, or if you use Bitcoin, I'm actually going to hook you up with a 150% deposit bonus. And then just DM us on Twitter at ChatSports, and we're going to hook you up with a free NFL jersey. So again, use Bitcoin and get a 150% deposit bonus. You put down 100, you're going to get 150 for free, plus that NFL jersey. You want a Derek Carr? You want a Bo Jackson? Go say thank you to BetDSI. Our next mailbag question in here is from Hector Ruiz, and he's got a nice picture there, a nice little Raiders logo. Mitchell, do you think my draft picks make sense? I think we should draft Josh Allen, Christian Wilkins, and Dante Thompson. That would fix the defensive issues right away. I like Christian Wilkins. He's a really smart player, and he's also thrown up the Heisman once in a while, which I can appreciate. But I also really like Josh Allen, too. I mean, he was the reason why he was number 2 on my personal big board for the Raiders. Dante Thompson, he's, in my opinion, he's going to be a first-round pick, but I don't necessarily know. I would love to get Montez Sweat, because that dude measured out to have like the longest wingspan I've ever freaking seen in my life. If we could somehow get Montez Sweat in that, that would be lit AF to me. And 3 solid defensive players. I understand they have a lot of defensive needs, but do I like it? Sure, I'll give it a B grade. What do you guys think? Grade Hector Ruiz's, I guess, top 3 picks there. All right, next one coming in here is from Beast. Oh, X1XB Tex Miller. That's a lot. And maybe just get a picture, man. That's what I need. If the Raiders go defensive tackle with the 4th pick, should they move Hurst over to defensive end? Hashtag Worldwide Raiders. I don't really necessarily like this idea. I like Mo Hurst as a defensive tackle, and sure, he's a little bit undersized, but the dude's got a big heart. And the reason why I say that is he's got a motor for days, and I understand he fell in the NFL draft, but go back and watch what he did at Michigan. Heck, go back and watch what he did this year. The dude, when he's playing at his highest level, he is unbelievable, and he inspires the defense, a really solid defensive player, but I don't really necessarily like him over at the defensive end. I would keep him at defensive tackle. This next one's coming from Matthew, and I gave Matthew a shout-out on the last week's show, and he said that he absolutely can't wait. He can't wait to watch our show here because we're going to be doing more live shows there. So, Matthew, I much appreciate it, but next time, my man, why don't you actually throw in a comment so that way I can put you on screen and get the question. You know what I can't wait for? The Super Bowl. And if you want to bet on the Super Bowl, there's one place to do it. It's chatsports.com/bet and use our promo code LIVE120. When you sign up and deposit, use MasterCard, or if you use Bitcoin, you're going to get an extra 150% deposit bonus thanks to our sponsor, BetDSI. And then just DM us on Twitter at ChatSports, and we're going to hook you up with a free NFL jersey of your choice. If you don't want one of those Breeze, Elliott, Brady jerseys, guess what? We got Derek Carr. We got Bo Jackson. I can get you guys hooked up. Remember, chatsports.com/bet and use that promo code LIVE120. And if you sign up and deposit with Bitcoin, you're going to get that extra 150% deposit bonus. Shout out to BetDSI for hooking us up with the best promo code on the internet. My next one in here is from Alex Chamberlain. And he's got Raiders drafting Ed Oliver with the 4th pick. In parentheses, from a French fan. Where at? Do I say bonjour? Is that right? I'm not quite sure. I didn't take French in high school. So Alex, he's got the idea of taking Ed Oliver with the 4th pick. So I kind of threw this up here. Now, he does remain one of the top prospects for this year. And when you watch Ed Oliver, he's super talented. And his size, I get, is a little bit of a worry. And he might be limited in certain schemes. But the dude's super strong. And I'm going to compare him to a lesser version of Aaron Donald. Because let's be real, there's no Aaron Donald out there when it comes to size and power. I see it in Ed Oliver, but I just don't think he's as athletic as Aaron Donald. When you look at this guy's career stats at Houston, it's pretty incredible. 31 games, 189 tackles, 52 tackles for a loss, 13.5 sacks. Ed Oliver is an absolute monster in the middle. So I asked my dude Tom Downey. I said, Tom, can you hook me up with your top 5 players on your big board? He has Ed Oliver right there at number 4. So the Raiders taking Oliver at 4, maybe in terms of just talent, might make some sense. However, defensive tackle isn't as big of a need as an edge rusher or I think a linebacker for the Raiders. So in my personal opinion, Ed Oliver going to the Raiders at number 4, I'd probably only give it one Chucky Head small shred of truth. But the show isn't about me. It's about y'all. Should the Raiders draft Ed Oliver 4th overall? I want you to type D for draft or type P for pass. Should the Raiders draft Ed Oliver 4th overall? Next one's coming in from Nicholas Billings. And with the Raiders, will the Raiders, my mistake, sign Gerald McCoy or D-Jax this offseason? So he meets DeSean Jackson and Gerald McCoy. So I'm going to start it off with the first part of the question with Gerald McCoy. Should the Raiders sign Gerald McCoy? And there's a report right now that he's probably going to be cut by the Buccaneers, and he's 30 years old. And I think it's mainly due because they're about to insert a new defense there with new defensive coordinator Todd Bowles. And even though defensive tackle isn't a huge need for the Raiders, I still think Gerald McCoy is a pretty solid player. And the Raiders, as I've stated multiple times on the show, had only 13 sacks in 2018, which, in parentheses, I get it. Worse than the NFL. You guys know that. In 2018, though, McCoy, I don't think had the year that many people were hoping he was going to have. Definitely the Bucs. He had only 6 sacks, 28 tackles, 6 tackles for a loss, but 0 forced fumbles. And he wears that C in the jersey for a reason because he's been really good for the Buccaneers throughout his entire career. I mean, you're looking at 54.5 sacks, 296 tackles, 79 tackles for a loss, and 6 forced fumbles. I understand the Buccaneers defense is really bad, and I get that he's 30 years old, but would you want Gerald McCoy, who is a pretty talented player, on the Raiders? Now, he's not what he used to be. I get it. But would you want the Raiders to sign Gerald McCoy, which is type S for sign, type N for no. If you want to know what I think, hit me up on IG or Twitter, at MitchellRenz365. Next player I'm about to talk about is DeSean Jackson for the second part of the question. And he's basically flirting around ideas with DeSean joining the Raiders. Well, when you look at DeSean's 2018 season, 41 catches, 774 yards, 4 touchdowns, but he still averaged 18.9 yards per catch. That's really special to me. When you look at his entire career, DeSean, he's been a field stretcher. The one thing that I think the Raiders really missed, and I don't really know if Martavis Bryant made a big impact in terms of stats, but when a guy is that fast, you have to respect his speed. And I think a lot of people were yelling at Derek Carr for doing checkdowns, but defenses were basically forcing him to do that because nobody respected the speed that the Raiders had. And if you could at least add DeSean Jackson to stretch the field, I think that'd be a pretty interesting move. But in terms of what he's done throughout his entire career, he's got over 10,000 yards, over 50 touchdowns, and that average of 17.4. That would look pretty good streaking down the sides in some silver and black. So should the Raiders sign DeSean Jackson? He's an aging receiver, but the dude is still lightning quick. So if you're watching this on Facebook, I want you to give me a wow face for yes, a laughing face for no. If you're watching it on YouTube, just comment below, yes or no. Should the Raiders sign DeSean Jackson? This next one's coming in from Raiders fan, nice number. Raiders draft Drew Lock if available with the 2nd or 3rd first-round pick. I'm going to give this one Chucky Head, and I just think it's a small shred of truth. When it comes to Drew Lock to the Raiders, it's interesting, right? And I understand what he's been doing, and he's a pretty talented quarterback. And when I asked Tom who he would compare Drew Lock to, he compares him to Derek Carr. So I can understand the comparisons. But he improved a little bit, I think, in his last year with Mizzou. But when I look at what he did in 2017 is when he was really freaking good. He threw for over 40 touchdowns. But his 2018 year at Mizzou, 62.9% completion percentage, 3,498 yards, 28 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Now, he has a lot of time playing quarterback because he's been there for 4 years, and it's really kind of hard to find a quarterback coming out of college that has as much experience as Drew Lock does. Here's the thing, though. You asked me straight up, could the Raiders potentially take Drew Lock with one of their first picks? I don't necessarily know if it's going to happen simply because in our latest mock draft, Tom had him going in the top 10. In fact, he had him going to the Denver Broncos. So for him to fall all the way down to 24 or 27, I get that this isn't a strong draft class, but reports are right now that the Broncos are in love with this kid. And sure, John Elway, I don't really think has been able to determine what a good quarterback is, but if the Broncos are in love with him falling all the way down to 24, 27, I don't know if it's going to happen. But we've been talking a lot about quarterbacks and Derek Carr drama and all this, so Tom was nice enough took me up with his top draft quarterback prospects. He's got Dwayne Haskins at 1, Drew Lock at 2, Daniel Jones from Duke at 3, Will Grier at 4, and then Brett Ripon from Boise at number 5. So, I always give my Chucky heads, and if you're new to the show, 0 Chucky heads, tuck rule, tuck that. 1 Chucky head is a small shred of truth. 2 Chucky heads is people are talking 50-50. 3 is pretty likely, so 75% chance of happening. And then 4 Chucky heads is believe it 100% that this is going to happen. So drafting Drew Lock. Are the Raiders going to draft Drew Lock? How many Chucky heads are y'all going to give this? And if you want to know what I think, and I don't know if you were listening because I kind of already gave it away, DM me on Twitter and Instagram at MitchellRens365. Next one coming in here is from your boy Gage. What's going on, Gage? Is there any chance the Raiders could draft Nick Bosa? Sure. There's always a chance, right? I'll give this one 2 Chucky heads. People are talking. And the Raiders drafting Nick Bosa is something that we're going to talk about probably up until the draft itself. Now, he is regarded as the best player in the draft, and I agree with that. And I understand he only played 3 games this past season. I get it. But when you watch this dude on the field, he could actually fill a huge hole that Khalil Mack left behind and fill that hole in the sense of getting after the quarterback because that's what he did at Ohio State. And he's just like his brother. And that might be a lazy comp, but guess what? Nick Bosa is just like his brother Joey. And sure, both of them have dealt with injury issues, but when they're right, they're freaking right. And in 29 games for Nick Bosa at OSU, 77 tackles, 29 tackles for a loss, and 17.5 sacks. Nick Bosa can get after the quarterback, and when you have only 13 sacks as an NFL team, guess what? You need to get after the quarterback. Here were my Raiders' first pick targets in 2019 because I think Nick Bosa is going to be the number 1 overall pick. And if the Raiders want to go get Nick Bosa, they're going to have to trade up to number 1, in my opinion. But if I was the Raiders, and this is my big board, I'd have Nick Bosa at 1, Josh Allen at 2, Cleveland Ferrell at 3, Quillen Williams at 4, and then Greedy Williams at 5. This is also based on need. What are the chances the Raiders draft Nick Bosa? Do you think it's a 25% chance, a 75% chance, a 100% chance? I want you to comment below. What are the chances the Raiders draft Nick Bosa? Next one coming in here is from my dude Kenny. What's going on, Kenny? It's a cute dog you got there. Everyone knows the defense needs work. What are some of the key targets to beef up the offensive line? The number 1 way that you beef up the offensive line is to get rid of Tom Cable and go to DirecTV because I am absolutely sick and tired of Tom Cable ruining offensive lines. He ruined the Seahawks and he ruined the Raiders. But if you want to know the top offensive linemen, go to Chat Sports' main YouTube page, so chatsports.com/TV. We just dropped our top 25 free agents, so guess what? Go check out the video there. I guarantee you it's going to be a good one. I can also guarantee that Mizzen+Main is going to hook you guys up with the unbelievable dress shirts. Go to www.comfortable.af to see for yourself because these shirts are indeed comfortable as F. They're made in America, and they're the best damn dress shirt you will ever buy. Raider Nation, what's going on? Is this the number 1 Raiders channel on YouTube? 4 Chucky heads, believe it, baby. And if you haven't already, subscribe right here. I'm giving you Chucky heads, news, rumors, Raider Nation rumors. And look at this, I'm making your life easier. Check out my next video. Thanks for watching, and go Raiders.